Do you want to light up your piano playing rock and roll, but you don't know where to start? Well, in this lesson, I'm going to show you the 3 first steps to getting started playing rock and roll piano. You're going to learn my top rock and roll bass line, you're going to learn the rock and roll chords, and finally, you're going to learn my top rock and roll licks and riffs. All right, step number 1 is to learn the rock and roll bass line, and it sounds amazing. Okay? It's actually very simple to play because it follows the same pattern, okay? So here's what we're doing. We're starting on a C open 5th. We're grabbing this twice, so 1 and then here's the magic, 2 and. You see that? So that's twice on the 5th, that E flat to E, and then we repeat it. Now, you can use the same finger on these middle 2 notes. In fact, the way I like to play it goes 1, 2, and then I use the middle finger 3, 4. Does that make sense? And so anytime you're on a C chord, you're going to play this pattern. Okay? Now the chord will change to an F chord. And so when you go to F, you're going to do the same pattern. So it's twice on the F and C, and then the middle notes, A flat to A. And once again, you can use the same finger, or you can use different fingers. Okay? Then you're going to go to a G chord, and you're going to do the same pattern. Okay, so that's twice on the G and the D, and then we have B flat to B, okay? So let's review all of the chords. We have C, we have F, and we have G. Super simple. Now, once you know this, you want to play it in the 12-bar blues form. And the 12-bar blues form has 4 measures of C, 2 measures of F, 2 measures of C, and then 1 measure of G, 1 measure of F, 1 measure of C, and 1 measure of G, okay? Now, if that seems like a lot to remember, don't worry. When I break it down, it will make sense, okay? So, 4 measures of C, here's how it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're gonna switch to the F. Here it is. 5, 6, and now back to C. 7, 8. Now we're going to go to that G chord. This is 9. To the F is 10. And then 11 is the C. And 12 is the G. All right, next we're going to play this with the included backing track. But before we do this, if you're enjoying the lesson, please hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more videos just like this. All right, we're going to play this with the slowest backing track, and then I'm going to teach you the right-hand rock and roll chords. Here we go. Here's 3, and here's 4. Now let's go to F. That's 5, 6, and back to C. That's 7, and here's 8. Now up to G, and we're going to go to F, and back to C, and finally to G. By the way, this lesson comes with 3 downloadable backing tracks at different tempos. You can also download and print the lesson sheet music. I'll put a link to all of this below. All right, congratulations on making it through step number 1, and in step number 2, you're gonna learn the right-hand chords. Okay, these are super fun chords. They work great in the rock and roll style as well as other styles. And what I love about these chords is that they're super punchy. So when you grab the chords, it really makes a nice statement. Okay, so what are the chords? Well, thankfully, there are only 3 chords that you need to learn. The first one is like this. Okay, super cool, super crunchy. What is the name of this chord? It's a C7 chord, but I'm taking the 3rd out of the chord to give it kind of an open sound, and second, I'm sliding the G to give it some blues, okay? So check it out, we got the grab and the slide. You see that? And that's the full motion right there. So just practice this chord, that's your C7. The second chord is what's called an F7. Okay, a lot easier to play. We're gonna play the chord like this. It's an F7 chord, and we're actually adding one little color note to it, the G, to give it a little jazzier vibe. Okay, that's the F7. And finally, the third chord is our G7 chord. We're going to play it like this, very simple. Once again, that's the root chord. We're adding an A to color the chord a little bit, and those are your 3 chords. Let's review them one more time. We got the C7 with the slide. We've got the F7, kind of jazzy, and the G7. And you are ready to go with these chords and the left hand. Okay, so you got the chords. Second is the rhythm. How do you practice this rhythm? Well, the rhythm goes like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That is your fundamental rhythm. If you want to clap it, it goes like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so practice this rhythm. Go nice and slowly. Get your slides in there. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Notice at the end, I do a little shake here. This is called a tremolo, and it's really common in the rock and roll style. You grab that last chord with the slide, and then you shake all of the notes around your center note, which becomes your pivot note, okay? So the grab with the slide, and then the tremolo, okay? Now the tremolo does not have to be fast, okay? You can do a slow tremolo. That's fine, but you just want to get that shaking motion. It's okay if you don't shake it perfectly, okay? But you generally want to pivot around that center note and shake it like that, okay? Then when you get to the F chord, you will play the same rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and notice I'm tremoloing on my F chord. So it's the same concept. For this one, I like to pivot on the 2 center notes, and then I just rock those outer notes, okay? And once again, same rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? Same thing on the G chord. When you get to the end of the form, you're going to play the G chord, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then switch to your F chord, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I'm using the same rhythm for these chords, but I move to the new chord on measure 2. Does that make sense? So we start the rhythm on a G, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, and we finish the rhythm, okay? And so once again, this applies throughout the full form. So I'll count you off on both hands. You can practice along with me. You can slow the video down if you want, and here it is. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3. Here's the F. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 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 and 4. All right, amazing job. Next, you're going to learn the licks and the riffs. But before I teach you these, if you want to go deeper on playing in the rock and roll piano style, I recommend that you check out our rock and roll learning track over at pianowithjonny.com. All you do is head up here to learning tracks, select your level. So if you're more on the beginner side, you select beginner. You're going to come down here to styles, scroll down to boogie and rock piano, and you will see all of our content on learning blues, boogie, and rock and roll piano, which are all very similar styles, including one of our top courses, Jonny's Jumpin' Boogie. You're going to learn a lot of these left-hand patterns and riffs and licks in the right hand. Lots of great blues, boogie, and rock content here. You're going to learn about chords and bass lines, tons of material. And then, if you're a little more on the intermediate or advanced side, I want to show you one of our top courses. So head over to Styles, you're going to go Boogie and Rock Piano. And then this is our flagship course, the 1950s Rock and Roll Piano course. This is where you're really going to dig into this particular style of piano. You're going to learn more about this left hand, alternate left hand patterns, how to create a solo in the right hand, how to play even more licks and riffs, and once again, lots of great content here. You're going to learn everything you need to know about rock and roll piano. So I'll put a link to these learning tracks below. All right, congrats, you made it to step number 3. You've learned the essential rock and roll left hand. You've learned your rock and roll chords. But what if you want to play some cool licks and riffs? What you just heard are basically licks and riffs that I have combined. And so if you want to play rock and roll piano, you need to have some licks in your bag of tricks. So you can pull it out, you can play that cool lick, something really flashy to impress the audience. Now there are a lot of different rock and roll licks and riffs, but in this lesson I want to teach you 3 of my all-time favorite rock and roll licks so that you can get started playing rock and roll music now. Starting with lick number 1, this is a classic Jerry Lee Lewis lick. If you listen to Jerry Lee Lewis, he comes way up on the piano and you'll do something like that. Sometimes you'll play with his foot. He has tons of fun. And so this is just a great, I would call this a classic rock and roll lick. So what I'm doing is I'm coming up way high on the piano and I'm grabbing this simple position. It's an open 5th, C, G, and C, but I do a grab on the G flat and then I come up to the G, okay? So I have 1 and 2, and then I go back to my grab and then I come up to the G, 3 and 4 and. Does that make sense? So here it is once again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And that's your basic lick, and it works on all of the chords. So if you're on a C, works great, works on an F. Okay, also works on the G. Okay, so practice that lick, try it over the full 12-bar blues form and have some fun with it. Lick number 2 is one of my favorite licks and it goes like this. Okay, it has a very kind of rolling sound down the piano and it's just magical. If you want to impress someone, it's just a great sound. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the notes from the C blues scale. The C blues scale has these notes, okay, but I'm harmonizing the bottom of the blues scale with the top note C. So we have this, and then I come down, same finger, kind of a stretch, and then I go E flat C. That's it. Once more, we have the grab, roll it down, same finger, like this, and get really comfortable with this motion. It's a bit of a stretch, okay? So you can practice this. If it's too much of a stretch to grab the C way up here, you can do the A. That's a cool sound too. Okay, so it's a little bit easier. You could also grab the B flat. It's a little harder in my opinion. So if you're more on the beginner side, go for this. If you're on the intermediate or advanced side, go for this. Now the rhythm can be a little bit tricky for students. The rhythm here goes like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. With the left hand, I'll go really slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And here it is a little faster. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. If you did it on the F, it would be like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Make sense? Finally, lick number 3 goes like this. Okay, very hip, very bluesy sound. For this guy, I'm starting up on the G flat, coming up to G, I'm doing a roll down the blues scale. Like that. You see that? Same finger, down, and then I'm gonna come down the blues scale like this, and then here's the magic. We're gonna harmonize the blues scale with the G flat and C, then come down to F, and then this is pretty cool, E flat and A, F and A, and then down, a slide to the E and the G. You see that? So there's the grab and the slide, okay? Here's the full lick. I'll go slow. Okay? The rhythm also matters. Here's the rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And here it is with the left hand, nice and slowly. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And once again, you can speed this up and play it on the other chords. Here's an example. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. And now on the F. Okay, and then on the F, by the way, sometimes I'll modify it to match the chord better. In other words, on the F chord, I will not go to the E, I'll just stay on the E flat. The last thing I want to mention is that if you want to learn more licks just like these, I recommend that you check out our course, The Bible of Blues Riffs. In this course, you will learn 60 of my all-time favorite blues, boogie, and rock licks. This is our beginner to intermediate level course. And then we also have the intermediate to advanced level course. And when you combine these courses, you will actually learn a total of 120 of my favorite licks and riffs. So I'll put a link to those courses below. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. And if you did, please leave a comment. Also, be sure to check out pianowithjonny.com. We have the full online learning program where you can learn just about any piano style, how to improvise. It's a ton of fun, and we have an amazing community. So be sure to check it out, and I'll see you in the next one.